Welcome back to The Good Oil. In episode 1, we unpacked the science behind the omega-3 intake gap. Today, we take the next step. How do we turn knowledge into action? We'll explore why dosage guidance has been confusing for so long, how consumers really make decisions, and what it takes to build habits that actually stick. We'll look ahead at the future consumer, from ageing populations to personalised nutrition, and what it means for omega-3 demand in the years ahead. And with that, we welcome to the show Kaitlin and Elana. Welcome back to the show, Kaitlin and Elana.
Thank you, Bassam. Nice to be here.
So let's focus on how much omega-3 do people really need, and this is basically getting you to tell us about this, Elana. One of the most common questions you receive, from consumers is how much omega-3 do I really need? And we sort of touched on it in the first episode. Why has this been difficult to answer historically?
It's a very common question and difficult to answer because recommendations are literally all over the map. It depends on the country that you're in, depends on the age state that you're in, depends on the health issue that maybe you're trying to, if there's certain health claims. So there's different intake recommendations. I would love to see something that's more standardized across, that we can more easily answer that question.
Yeah. And so GOED is working towards a science-based, intake consensus. Why is having a single clear recommendation, as you saw, so important?
Well, I think from a communications perspective, we do need a single number. I mean, we're all human beings. It doesn't matter where we live. It even doesn't matter what our food intake is. We want to make sure that whatever we're getting in terms of EPA and DHA, whether it's from fish, fatty fish, or supplementations, that there is a standard minimum intake that will give people what they need to prevent, certainly for overall health, but for cardiovascular prevention, because we know cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in the world. But also, maybe even higher order benefits beyond what we would be able to recommend to people.
Yeah, and I think we've all been into a grocery store or a pharmacy, and you see the plethora of different supplementations, and there's no doubt there's a confusion around consumer behaviour and their supplement adoption rate. How do you see that?
So, if consumers don't know what dosage to look for, they have a hard time even just choosing a supplement, because even the supplements on the market are various different dosages themselves. So if we have a single number that we would be able to provide to them, that at least gives them a starting point.
Yeah, I want to switch over to how the change in consumer behaviour, because that's really critical, right? And I think GOED's doing a great job from that perspective. Your consumer research shows people rely heavily on health professionals, which is fair enough. How does GOED work to educate them?
So we have done some consumer research that shows that in terms of who people trust for health information, healthcare practitioners rank up in the top, and then followed thereafter of family and friends or what they see online. Actually, in some of the Asian countries, online ranks at the top. But for the most part, it is healthcare practitioners. So doctors, nurses, dietitians, people that have credentials in nutrition or in health. So how do we reach them? Is we make sure that the communications that we have is more into the science, so that we can't just say, give a blanket, your patients need omega-3s, trust us. We need to show them the science. We need to communicate it in an effective way. We try to go to their conferences. We try to, do symposia with them. And we have special e-newsletters that we send out just for the healthcare practitioners. And we keep the lines of communications open. We also need to know different practitioners in different countries are more relied upon than others. So I know in some European countries, it's pharmacists that people go to, and then in the U.S., it's dietitians. So, and it's not just one or the other; it's just who's kind of the lead.
I'm assuming that you're working with health influencers, right? And how do you make sure that the messaging is credible and effective?
Well, we give them, no. We absolutely have to make sure that the message always stays science-based. And so, but it's not just that. So we provide messaging. We do pitching to online influencers or health influencers. We also need to make sure that they themselves are credible in the way that they turn that message around to their audiences. So, of course, it'd be wonderful if Kim Kardashian could talk about omega-3s, but is she really somebody that can credibly talk about the science? I don't think that that's necessarily our best conduit for information. I would much rather have a well-certified dietitian or health practitioner that can understand the science and the things that they can credibly deliver to their audiences.
Yeah, and you mentioned, often mentioned the habit stacking. Can you explain to listeners what that means and how it works?
Yeah, so that's classic behavior change. When we're talking about people trying to eat more fatty fish or taking an omega-3 supplement, what we're essentially doing is asking them to develop a new habit. So habit stacking is taking something that you already do, ideally something you already enjoy, and adding your new habit on top of it. So I know one thing is to take your omega-3s and put them next to your coffee, because I'm not going to start my day without my cup of coffee. And so if I have my omega-3 supplements right there, then I'm more likely to take them that way. Or it could be something of, just having a specific type of supplement that you enjoy, and so that becomes more of a habit.
What's the biggest behavioural sort of barrier, if you like, that prevents people from taking omega-3 daily?
A lot of times it is remembering to take their omega-3s, making it fun instead of making it feel like it's a chore. Some people don't want to take pills. I understand that. And that's why there's so many other ways that you can get your omega-3s, such as, these highly concentrated chews, or through, if you want to just have a liquid that you can disguise in another food. If you don't like the fish flavor, some people love the fish flavor and will just take their spoonful and put it right down. So making it more enjoyable for them is going to help continue and create a habit for them.
Yeah. Well, I want to move on to the future consumer, and in particular focusing on the aging population. And I want to frame this to give it a bit of context for yourselves and also the listeners, which will obviously lead to the questions. So before we dive into the future of omega-3, it's probably worth stepping back and looking at the bigger demographic picture shaping, the global health currently, right? So around the world, we're seeing populations aging faster than any point in history. So we're much older than we've ever been, right? Birth rates are falling, life expectancy is actually rising, and by 2050 we're talking about over 60s are going to be more popular. There's more over 60s than they're going to be children, which is a completely different dynamic in terms of what does health look like, and how do we work with these priorities. So from that, you'll see shifts in new sets of health priorities, right? So we're seeing, I think you talked about it, higher rates of cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, vision challenges, inflammation-related conditions, and mental health concerns. In fact, in Australia, we talk about, in the US, the number one sort of disease that kills people is heart disease. In Australia, it's actually brain disease. So things like Alzheimer's and so forth, right? So the questions become, how does omega-3 fit into the new reality? What does healthy aging look like? How do we support not just living longer, but live well? So from that perspective, I suppose the first question I want to ask you is, and please both of you can answer this, but how does omega-3 fit into this long-term healthy aging strategy? Because that's going to be the new norm, right?
I think that there's a lot of focus nowadays on longevity.
Yep.
And on, as you just said, not only living longer, but living better for longer. Because you can get older, but you could be feeble, or, loss of your cognitive abilities. And so we want to make sure that we are getting ahead of that as much as possible, as you said, as our population is aging. So the best way to, at least from the omega-3 perspective, is to start the habit and start it young. Because even though no, it's never too late to begin, having the omega-3s in your system to help do that preventative work, is what's going to benefit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think as we think about an aging population, some of the things people worry about: brain, heart, eyes, and voila. Those are three of the areas where omega-3 has the strongest science and the biggest benefit, which I feel like fits so well into this healthy aging and longevity story, because they are beneficial for those particular changes specifically. And so when people ask, like, well, how do they fit? I'm like, they're their perfect fit. I really feel like it's a great strategy to include.
And the science is very strong with those, right? With the brain health and heart health.
Yeah, at GOED, we focus on 4 main areas of health benefits, which we continue to communicate as often as we can. So we focus on heart, brain, eyes, pregnancy, and prenatal.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, as people are aging and aren't in the childbearing age and stage, those 3 main areas are what we continue to emphasize and focus on. And there are so many other areas of science where omega-3 is exciting and interesting and innovative, which is great, but it's not always consistent. And so the reason why those 3 areas we continue to talk about is because it is consistent and it is strong.
Yeah.
And we see clinical benefits, whether we're looking for improvements or reducing the risk, both of which are really important in healthy aging.
And do you see any regional differences in how consumers perceive omega-3 benefits? Like, is it different in Asia and, say, versus the USA, for example?
Yes, and I think a lot of times it's related to the health claims that are allowed in that country.
Sure.
So, like in Korea, there's some health claims for dry eye and eye health benefits. So that's one of the main reasons why people in Korea will consume omega-3s. I think as heart health is just a global benefit, global concern. And I think that's what we try to use at GOED as sort of the common denominator. But yeah, there are certain things I think in other Asian cultures where aging, there's a lot more emphasis on your elder care and all that. So the healthy aging benefits really resonates for those folks.
And like the future there's a lot of talk about the future of personalised nutrition, right? And so how is that shaping in terms of omega-3 product innovation and the way that brands are bringing out these products into the market?
Mm-hmm. I kind of have 2 thoughts to that question. And one is that what I find a fascinating benefit is that if I'm choosing to take omega-3s for my eye health because I am experiencing dry eye and I want to improve eye health, it doesn't mean that I'm not also getting heart health and brain health benefits. I don't have to check a box and say, I'm here for my eye health benefits.
Yeah.
Actually, if I'm taking them for eye health, I'm also likely to experience brain and heart and other benefits too, which I think is really great. So that's kind of like a generic catch-all. You take, let's say 500 milligrams for your eye health. Oh, great. That's also beneficial for heart health. So that's one side. But we think about the other side of personalized nutrition. I think, as we've talked about, there are so many different ways to get your omega-3s. I think working with a dietitian, they can help you say, oh, you know what? Fish isn't working well for you. Let's think about a supplement. Or, oh, actually, you do enjoy a salmon burger when you're out with your friends. Have you tried making a salmon burger at home? Have you tried sardines mixed into your pasta sauce or on a salad? And so I think a dietitian can help you find creative ways to personalize your intake. And then the supplement industry, I think, has naturally created ways to personalize it from a person perspective. From the science side, there's some really great research that looks at genetic differences between people. So if Elana is a high converter, her body's really good at converting ALA into EPA and DHA, and maybe mine isn't as efficient, then we can think about, okay, well, really need to focus on my EPA and DHA directly. So there's some really great genetic research that shows we have differences in our metabolism. We have differences in the ways that our body are using EPA and DHA. I think that will continue, of course, to evolve. And I think what I am excited about from a personalized nutrition perspective too is, so we say omega-3s, EPA and DHA are important for brain health. There are so many brain health conditions. So let's continue to learn from a science side about all of those conditions, and we can personalize based on that too.
So if there's a brand now listening to both of you, how would you tailor the omega-3 messaging depending on the different groups that they're targeting? You know, if they're targeting seniors, athletes, how would you tailor that message to them?
I think, you taking the audience into consideration is, of course, a marketing strategy that you need to do that. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think you need to take a good look at the science on, let's take athletes, for example, of the omega-3 intake that typically elicits some sort of athletic advantage, whether it's decreased muscle soreness or whether it's improved recovery or increased performance or something like that. So I would message against that. If it's for older adults, maybe it's showing omega-3 intake for the dry eye or the things that are a real concern, especially as we age. Or for pregnancy, I think that's another great example, is just making sure that there's tons of science on omega-3s to help prevent preterm birth, keep a pregnancy longer, because, babies that are born well before their due date, it's not just they're smaller, but they have all kinds of issues that will keep them in the NICU, keep them in the hospital, drive up hospital costs, but also down the line, they might have more eye issues or other sort of health issues. So we want to make sure that babies are staying in their mother's bodies for, as long as, normal gestation amounts. So talking through some of these benefits that will really pay out for those particular audiences.
Yeah. So can I just ask you, so there's going to be a brand manager or marketing manager from a supplement company out there that's thinking about reaching certain groups of people. Could you talk me through about the different types of formats, and how that's evolving in terms of supplementation for omega-3?
Yes, the traditional omega-3s that we think about is cod liver oil or some sort of liquid omega-3s, which is still popular in various parts of the world, and is certainly a great way to get your omega-3s. But there's so many others too. There's the soft gels, and even among the soft gels, they can be large, they could be small, they could be coated so that you don't have those so-called fish burps. Different ways that consumers can enjoy their omega-3s. There's also, they can be in gummies, which is just taking off in the supplement space as a format to get any type of supplement. In the omega-3 space, you can't get you can't get a high concentration gummy in a traditional like gumdrop type of form. But there's a new technology that it's almost like a chew, and you can get a lot of EPA and DHA into a single or double chew. And I will say, I actually went to a conference not too long ago with dietitians, and we did a tasting party where I put out little samples of all the different types of omega-3s so that they could look at them, they could smell them, they could, and taste them, of course. And they were really excited about the many different ways. And it's not just the fish oils themselves. It's also looking at krill and looking at vegetarian, vegan algae oil.
Yeah, I mean, I think Elana's covered it. I love the different options that are available. They do sometimes range in dosage. And so when we think about a dose or a potency perspective, when we're aiming for a certain amount, we do encourage people to consider that as part of their decision. Liquids tend to be really highly concentrated. So that's kind of a good option if you're comfortable taking it with a spoon or mixing it into your yogurt. That can be a really good option to get a lot of EPA and DHA. When we're thinking about, the traditional gummy that might have been a multivitamin type or a gummy bear, those tend to have a lot less. So it's worth looking at the amounts of EPA and DHA on the label and seeing what you're hoping to get is going to match. It's also important to read the label to see how many you're supposed to be taking, because sometimes you might have bargained with yourself, okay, I'll take one a day, but actually the recommended dose might be 2 or 4. So are you willing to take that, or is the different format going to be a better fit for you?
Excellent. Well, just to close off, I want to just ask you guys about the myth bust and future outlook in terms of omega-3. What's one omega-3 myth you would eliminate globally, or you'd like to remove globally?
Something that I think is really important, which we've talked about, is that omega-3s are not all created equal. So when you go to the store and look at a new package of crackers that says omega-3s, a little alarm might go off that, is it actually EPA and DHA in this product, or is it ALA? There's also, you might see on supplements, omega-3, 6, 9. That doesn't mean the more the better. They are different types of omega-3s, not all delivering similar health benefits. So it's really focusing people's attention onto omega-3s, EPA and DHA. We're getting lots of the omega-3 ALA in our diet from various sources. So helping people to learn and distinguish that omega-3s are not all created equal.
So I would say that one of the myths that I hope we can just do away with are people that say, I don't need an omega-3 supplement because I eat plenty of fish. I think we've talked about that the science shows that even if you're eating fish up to 3 times a week even, which most people are not, those are the heavy fish consumers, they're still not getting that ideal omega-3 levels in their blood system. And so more chances are you probably do need to supplement your diet with some sort of EPA DHA supplement.
Yeah. And I suppose you also see a lot of products that says it's high in omega-3 but doesn't have either DHA or EPA, right? Which is an issue. Anyway, well, look, thank you so much, both of you, for great insights on omega-3 today, and much appreciated.
Thank you for having us.
If there's one message to take away from today, it's this: the DHA science is strong, but behaviour is real barrier. People want to do the right thing for their health, but clarity, consistency, and simple habits are what ultimately drive action. Omega-3 isn't just a nutrient, it's a long-term investment in heart, brain, and healthy aging. Thanks for listening to The Good Oil. If this episode sparked a thought, share it with someone who cares about their long-term well-being. Small habits compounds into life benefits, and sometimes all it takes is the right nudge to get it started.
You're listening to The Good Oil, where better health lies.